So we're back for another Zoom cast. I'm here today with my dear soul sister, Elizabeth, and I'm just so blessed to be sitting here with you and getting to share your work and your passions. And you know, the two that really come to the forefront is your beautiful work with honoring water across religions and spirituality of water and water ethics and sustainability. And on the other hand, I really, and I've experienced this too, your work with Taiji and the flow that kind of brings with embodiment. So, so thank you so much for being with me today. And
thank you, Michelle. It's great to be here with you and to be able to talk and share our work. Yeah.
Yeah. So you did your dissertation research and studying and did even some traveling. And, you know, if you'd like to share a little bit about what that process was like with your research with water spirituality, I would love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, I've really felt a connection with water from my earliest memories. I always loved being in the swimming pool growing up, and just like hiking next to water, and just being with water, though I didn't really think about it all that much until I was at the University of North Texas and I took a philosophy of water issues class. And that got me to be thinking about, well, what is water? Like, how can we not take water for granted, but lift water up into consciousness and start thinking deeply about water? And so that class with Dr. Irena Klaver, that really colored my life. It really informed the way that I started to relate to water. And I did my master's thesis about the Ganges River and about the pollution of the river and the damming of the river. And then I ended up going to India during my doctoral research to see the Ganges and to see the Yamuna. And it was really striking to have a different kind of perspective and to be able to talk to people who related to the river as something sacred, yet something, it was very polluted, you know, both of those rivers. And so that was one of the things I studied with my doctoral research. But yeah, so I've just been really enjoying thinking about water and how we can learn how to have a deeper relationship with water and a deeper sense of intimacy and empathy with water, so that we can not take water for granted and not continue to like destroy the life blood that we depend on. And so I'm just really excited about how to have personal practices and that help us to have a more connected relationship with water. That's one of my main passions, I guess. And with that, like Tai Chi and Qigong, how to flow like water, how to be like water in our movements, and imitate water, because we are bodies of water. You know, we're fluid, made up mostly of water, 70% roughly, just like the surface of the earth. And so that's how we know how to flow, because we are water bodies.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I'm like actually swaying as you're describing that, because I'm feeling into like that flow.
Yeah.
And when you said that about the percentage of our bodies and the percentage of the surface of the earth being the same, like that just makes so much sense to me. And how the moon, you know, pulls the tides, and also the feminine cycles, and just that there's such an interconnection that's possible. It sounds like through the consciousness of water, or our consciousness of water, and being with water in intimate relationship.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Like we are elemental beings,
Yes.
and so I love the element water, but you know, other people really feel like grounded in the earth, and they might have that kind of passion for the material earthy element, and like trees and plants and animals, or with that fire, or with air and breath, and yeah, so I love all those, but especially the flow of water, and the peace that can come with like meditating on a still lake, or that kind of empowerment that you can get when you're at the ocean and you feel that um, dynamic, forceful ebb and tide of the or ebb and flow of the tides, um, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, creeks. They're
Mm-hmm.
just they're friends to me. I love walking next to creeks and walking over creeks, and that's one of my practices is trying to be aware every time I walk over a bridge, to be aware that I'm walking over water. I'm traversing one bank of the creek, going to the other side, and what is the water looking like? Like, is it flowing well? Does it feel healthy? Do you see fish or birds, or is it all trashed out?
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of paying attention and trying to listen to the sounds of water,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically like listening to the voices of water. You
Mm-hmm.
know, there's um, even if water doesn't talk in the same kind of way that humans do, water still makes sounds, and we can learn how to listen more deeply to all those sounds of water, and to be attentive to if the water is healthy, or if the water needs our own attention and care more. Um, yeah, what is water calling us to do? Those are kinds of That's a question that I'm really interested in. Yeah, what can we learn from water? What can water teach us? Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm. When you say like listening to the voice of the water and listening to its needs, I'm, of course, as you were describing going over the creek and the sounds of the ocean and the creek, and of course I'm transported to Esalen,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
where the three waters
Yeah.
meet, the creek and the ocean and the hot springs,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a power
and
place. Yeah.
yes, and I just remember kind of being with you, at the creek when we were talking about the three waters and the sacredness of the water. And I just remember being impacted because it's like we could hear the creek and then we could hear the ocean too, and
Yeah.
like both of the voices of these very
Yeah.
different kinds of flows
Yeah.
are there, and
Yeah.
it's spoken different ways. It's like flow, reminding us to be flexible,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yeah.
the ocean's like the rhythm of it, and like it's almost like there's almost like a, yes, you said dynamism, right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
power to it
Yeah.
also, and a
Yeah.
consistency, and kind of like the heartbeat or the breath, the ujjayi
Yeah.
breath, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
those are some of the images that come to mind as you're describing the voices of the water.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like we can learn so much by contemplating water, and um, and simply being with water, um,
Mm-hmm.
and slowing down, paying attention, becoming more mindful. Those kinds of very basic practices of yeah, like learning how to treat water as a teacher, as a guide, as a spiritual friend, as this intimate, crucial member of our earth community that we would be nothing without. Like we are completely interdependent with water. All of life is. And, like we could only go, just a handful of days without water, not long at all. And so we have to keep, participating in that flow by nourishing ourselves and by letting water remind us that we have to take care of our whole earth community, just like water does. Water is that sustaining flow, and we have this responsibility to be a very respectful and responsible member of our earth community who cares for water, just like water cares for all beings. Yeah.
I'm hearing this honoring and this respect of water as teacher and sustainer.
Yeah.
And I'm also feeling into this, the way that it connects everything, so that it's a perspective that can be really not only vital and, like you said, nourishing, but kind of really like a necessary teacher for this time. It feels like in the times when things can get, feel separated, right? That the flow of the interconnection, like tributaries and capillaries, and just feeling that there's a way that the teachings of water are so important in these times.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it really, like, one of the main teachings of water is interdependence, and that completely intertwined relationship that we have with everybody else. And so another teaching of water is the teaching of compassion, and like how to realize that because we're not separate, then the suffering of somebody over here is actually our suffering too. And our suffering is another suffering. And so we have this camaraderie in suffering together. And that's what compassion is, that suffering with. And so by learning how to see that kind of complete interdependence, we can learn how to open our hearts to those who are strangers or enemies, or people from different political affiliations, or people from around the world that we've never seen and will never see, but we know that we have we're called to care for them in the ways that we act in our own lives, and in our larger communities, and in the countries that we live in. Like, we have a responsibility to care for others, and so one way to do that is learning how to care, particularly for water, and seeing how we need to shift our practices, like our own personal practices, but also like our agricultural practices, our industrial practices, the way that we use energy. Like, we need to really learn how to be more sustainable, or build like a regenerative community, a regenerative society, so that everybody has access to water. There's like almost 1 billion people around the world who don't have access to clean drinking water. And that's a basic human right. And there's like 2.5 billion, roughly 2.5 billion people who don't have access to sanitation, like adequate sanitation. And those two things go together, like drinking water and the ability to cleanly take care of waste. And so like, that's just one of the main issues that we have, of like how to care for water, to make sure that humans have enough water to survive and to take care of their needs, but also all the other members of our earth, so that it's not just like in terms of humans, but it's in terms of every being. We have to make sure that we're not using water in a wasteful way, but we're we're letting the river flow freely to benefit all beings. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the ethical aspect feels like it comes out of, like naturally out of that compassionate stance.
Mm-hmm.
Like understanding that interconnection and interdependence inherently, we lean into that. And then, like, I'm thinking like a meta meditation, like you expand that out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when we do that with the ripples, like the water with the stone
Yeah.
in the water, the ripples of that meta go around the planet, and we see the necessity of this responsibility for the ethical interaction with water, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore the rights, the human rights of every being, human and non-human being, all of the living beings, to have water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I love that image of ripples, because often we feel powerless, and we feel like, well, I'm just one person and the world is completely messed up, and how am I going to help? But if you just think about that ripple effect, like everything you do has some kind of effect. And the ripples might only go so far, but they might go really, really far without you knowing. Just like that, the image of the butterfly causing a tsunami across the world, like that. Like we have no idea of the power of our own actions and the collective power of working with others. And so yeah, if we can remember that yeah, like our own love and compassion flows with water, so that if we act in that kind of caring way toward water, water will carry that out, and it will touch other people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, and so powerful as a sense of, like, actually we do have the capacity for, supporting change. And the small things that we do may actually grow into larger
Yeah.
movements,
Yeah.
or flowing into larger rivers that
Mm-hmm.
are already happening,
Yeah.
and finding one another and connecting in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also, like, curious, because it feels like sometimes, the disconnect from the systems of the earth has been, part of the issue in how we've gotten to where we are. So I'm wondering if practices like, Tai Chi and Qigong, like the embodiment practices,
Yeah.
help us reconnect
Yeah.
with these lessons, with these teachings.
Totally. I mean, I personally feel that. Um,
Uh-huh.
I mean, it might not be the case for everybody. Like, I'm not saying everybody needs to practice these kinds of contemplative practices like Tai Chi and Qigong or yoga or meditation, but they really have a strong potential for transformation. Um, and so with Tai Chi and Qigong, so much of it can be kind of summarized in a way of thinking, like, okay, so it's about slowing down, paying attention, breathing, flowing, like those very, very basic ideas, those very basic practices. Um, and and with Tai Chi and Qigong, they really center on energy, Qi, or life force, which is the same kind of thing as prana, and very, very closely connected with breath and with the flow of the blood.
Mm.
And so it's said in the Chinese tradition that qi is this life force that flows within the human, within all beings, within our whole world, our whole cosmos. And so it's this thing, this spiritual material force that connects us with everything. And so learning how to to cultivate your own energy can help you to see that energy in the world in a more vivid way. And so with these kinds of practices, you know, like it really helps to slow down and to particularly to slow down the nervous system, to slow down your thoughts, to remember that you are alive and you have this innate capacity for wisdom and compassion, and you can be this vessel for energy to flow through in a more peaceful, less turbulent way. And so this can really translate to our lives when we're not practicing, you know, our lives when we're walking down the street, like learning how to really walk mindfully, or whenever we're drinking water, to drink mindfully and with a deep sense of reverence, and to really like to contemplate the fact that the water that we're drinking, like where does it come from and where does it go after it leaves our body, and what is the state of the hydrological cycle right now, like, and what is going on with water all around the world. These kinds of questions can really can come up easier if we can learn how to slow down and pay attention and to be with our breath, and to learn how to move in a more graceful way, in a more harmonious way with the world around us. Yeah. To have every step be an act of love, you know.
Yeah, what a practice, right? To be able to be more connected to the body, to the flow of life, to others, to the earth. Yeah, I'm really feeling that as you describe it, that there are these flows, right? The flow of energy, the flow of breath, the flow of water. That, you know, when we're not resisting or fighting, or not that there's not a role for all the emotions, right?
Right.
But that if, you know, certain emotions arise, we can flow with that as well.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And the nervous system, it's like knowing that for so many in these times that that there's traumas that are being excavated and metabolized and healed, right? That these practices can help us sort of to flow and to move. But I'm also thinking very much about grounding, right? So yeah, flowing and grounding. Like I remember sort of the image of the tree, right, with the roots and with the trunk and with the, you know, the branches like reaching out. And you know, I remember also like the difference also between doing the practices indoors and doing them outdoors. And I know with COVID, it's like many people are doing things online and doing them in their homes, and but still may have access to an outdoor space to do these practices. And you often did practices with classes in parks and outdoors, right? Yeah, to be able to connect to the elements.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's good to practice anywhere and everywhere. And yeah, like I love practicing outside, especially to feel the wind, to hear the birds, to get that inspiration from trees, like learning how to stand grounded like a tree. Yeah. And then to be able to practice next to any kind of water and learn how to imitate those flows in the different ways that they show up with those particular bodies of water. But yeah, if practicing outside isn't ideal at any particular time, you can always be inside and really incorporate that that power of imagination and visualization. And yeah, just like Yeah, sometimes it's even better to practice inside, depending on how you're feeling, how what's going on in the world. Um, you can feel more at ease, maybe. Um, but yeah, yeah. In any case, wherever you practice, like just focusing on the breath, focusing on how the body um, is able to flow and to stand rooted, and how you can transform your emotions by simply becoming aware of them, and yeah, paying attention. Um, that simple act of paying attention, I feel, is kind of key. It's a key part of many practices. Um, Simply paying attention, and I feel that's really what's at stake right now. Like, it's so important for us to pay attention to all those who are suffering, um, all those who whose voices haven't been lifted up before, who have been suppressed and controlled, and it's so important for us to learn how to be an active listener, um, and to show our support and solidarity with those who are suffering. Yeah.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that compassion and responsibility
Yeah.
that we've been speaking about, it's like in really being able to understand our interconnection and honoring those beings that have been silenced and oppressed, and giving voice to that through our listening from our heart and from our soul, and
Mm-hmm.
through the practices. Yeah. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
for connecting that piece. Yeah. And I just wanted to also let everybody know that, while people are doing practices, whether it's outdoors or indoors, that there are some videos that you have online of some of the
Yeah.
practices. So it's possible for people to do that from wherever they are, from the comfort of their home, or, walking with their phone, and,
Mm-hmm.
going to, the few parks and things that are starting to open up. And, the thing about that is that it makes it more accessible to
Mm-hmm.
people too, to have these options online.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. We're in a time where, I mean, yeah, the world is so messed up right now, and yet we're still able to connect online, and and there's a big strength to that. Um, yeah, yeah. There's a big way that we can still be connecting, even if we can't be face to face in person. We can still be face to face through the power of the internet. And I guess I need to say, for at least for some of us, yeah, we're very privileged to have that, to have the internet in our world, but many people don't. Just like they don't have access to water, um, or toilets. I've heard that more people have cell phones than have toilets,
Mm,
and
didn't
so
know that.
that kind of yeah, it's really crazy. Um, and so it's so important for us to find ways that we can get involved, and to turn our intentions and our aspirations into concrete actions, um, and yeah, thinking about people in our own um, neighborhoods or states who live like right next to polluted bodies of water,
Mm,
because they don't have the same kind of economic power to say not in my backyard, you know.
mm,
Um, so it's so important that we feel that that connection with water transform into justice,
mm,
um, into to like a justice that that is motivated by that elemental connection with the life force water. Yeah, to learn how to speak up, and to let others have their voice be heard, so that we can really build that kind of just, sustainable earth community that we really need right now. And we can do that with every action. That's why I think practices are so key. Whatever practices that you have, you can intentionally direct those practices toward the benefit of others, toward the benefit of all beings. And that's my own goal in my life. And practice is so helpful. Yeah, it's that how to retrain habit, how to learn how to become more of who you want to be, in relation to others.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And from that, like feeling that also it provides an opportunity to become more conscious, right, of the patterns. So if there are patterns that have created the systems of oppression and interlocking systems of silencing, and the ways that the earth has been affected negatively through these different systems, having space to come into our understanding of the way that these systems have come into being, we also have then space to dream and to vision in new ways for what's possible.
Yeah, exactly.
For the earth communities and for the benefit of all beings.
Exactly. Yeah. And that sense of consciousness and conscience, that sense of like, your mind and your heart, they're completely intertwined. And there's this Neo-Confucian scholar, Due Ning, who says that something like the human being is a being who has the capacity to embody the whole cosmos in our consciousness and in our conscience. And so with this kind of integration of what we know, what we think, what we contemplate, and how we hold it in our hearts, how we feel it, how we are able to cultivate that that much needed sense of love and compassion, joy and equanimity and wonder, and like it's so crucial to integrate that. It's not enough just to know. It's not enough just to feel. It's like we really need to keep cultivating our human sensibility to become more conscious, more conscious, to have a greater sense of consciousness and conscience. It's so needed right now.
Right, and then dropping that into the root and into the belly and into the body, right? Is like through our actions, through our being.
Yeah.
Like, how do we then manifest that in the world?
Exactly.
Right. So, in what ways do we get involved? In what ways are we already involved? In what ways do we aspire to become involved? And in the movements, these movements of the unearthing of all of the things that need to be changed right now on the planet, and finding our way in that.
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, it's really when we think about conscience and that natural outpouring of compassion, like we're speaking to this ethics or ethos, right? That is understanding that we're all connected and we all impact one another, right? And so I think giving ourselves the space and the grounded embodiment to be able to understand that, like what that really means, is something that it sounds like these practices, but also the contemplation on water, the element itself, but also the water bodies and the water in our bodies really provides.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. It's just so illuminating to think about water and the different elements as a teacher or as a guide, because we can learn so much. Like we can learn how to transform ourselves and how to transform the world by watching how water can do that, or how the other elements can do that. Just thinking about something like the Grand Canyon and the Colorado River, and how it took years and years and years for that flow of water to carve that magnificent canyon, and the patience and the discipline and determination that it would take to do that. Like we can learn how to imitate water in that way, and also how to become more humble, and to really learn how to flow in a very low way that can really help to move underneath, to really to know that even if our actions are seemingly invisible, they really still can have a great impact. Learning that kind of humility that water can teach us. Yeah.
So many powerful images of different aspects of water, different types of water. And, I'd really invite the listeners, if they feel so inspired or inclined from this discussion, to check out your book. I'm going to put the link in the description under the video. And just really thinking about these practices and what might resonate for those that are listening, thinking about bodies of water that have inspired them and the teachings that they can receive from those bodies of water, and also these times and how to be of service. So I'm just so grateful that we had this time and this discussion. I feel really moved by it, and I definitely know it's going to be continuing to be a part of my own practices. And thank you so much for being here and for sharing your work.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It's been really great to talk with you and to think about these things together. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.